Hello, my name is Jim Liversidge. I'm the curator of the popular culture collections at the University of Florida. Welcome to the Suzy Covey Comic Book Collection, supporting an expanding area of academic study. A presentation from the Special Collections Department of the George A. Smathers Libraries at the University of Florida. The Suzy Covey Comic Book Collection was dedicated in 2008 in memory of Suzy Covey, a respected UF librarian and comic book historian. Her scholarship examined intersections of comics, technology, and sound, including Internet studies and studies of the comic book markup language, or XML, a specialized method defining a set of rules for encoding images, text, and sound effects depicted in comics, in a format that is both human and machine readable. The original comic book collection at the University of Florida was a small, eclectic compilation in the Baldwin Children's Book Collection. With the acquisition of larger comic book and comic strip collections, the Baldwin holdings were transferred and added to the popular culture collections in the Department of Special and Area Studies. A major force behind comic book scholarship in the United States was Dr. Don Ault, who created the nation's first comic studies classes at the University of California, Berkeley in 1972. Don Ault continued to passionately expand his teaching of graduate-level comics courses at Vanderbilt University in Nashville. In the late 20th century, the University of Florida recruited Dr. Ault to teach the traditional courses on Blake, Newton, and the British Romantic poets. But with the support of the UF English department, Ault inaugurated the first of its kind graduate-level comic scholarship program, which opened new vistas for contemporary research in popular media, animation, and comics. With the formation of the Comics and Visual Rhetoric graduate track in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences at the University of Florida, now one of the premier academic institutions for studying comics, animation, and other forms of visual rhetoric in North America, it was the duty and charge of the Department of Special and Area Studies to support this program with research material for students and faculty. Soon, the Suzy Covey Comic Book Collection grew to include Don Ault's personal collection of vintage New York Herald Tribune comic strips, miscellaneous vintage Sunday comic strips, vintage Blondie and the Watcher comic strips, the best of Walt Disney magazine anthologies, comics on microfilm, and vintage Hogan's Alley comics. Through Don Ault's vast list of scholarly contacts, we received comic book and comic strip donations from Dr. Saul Davidson, whose New York University's doctoral dissertation, Culture and the Comic Strips, earned him the very first PhD in comics studies in 1959. Included in the gift donations from Saul and his wife Penny Davidson were Victorian imagery, large feature comic books, vintage New York Sun comic strips, Harold Teen comic strips, special purpose and single series comic books, assorted fanzines, a rare collection of Will Eisner's preventive maintenance publications, and wartime comic books from the Second World War, the Korean War, and Vietnam. Don Ault's colleague, Dr. William Logan, University of Florida professor of creative writing, continues to provide science fiction magazines, graphic novel publications, Far Side paperbacks, political cartoon anthologies, and 2000 AD magazines from his private collection of comic book-related ephemera in support of the UF Comic Studies program. Through purchase and donation, including some larger gifts from Dr. Robert Kramer, noted osteopathic physician and comic book collector from Des Moines, Iowa, Dr. Jerry Berger, University of Florida College of Medicine and comic book collector, Professor Terry Belanger of the Virginia Commonwealth University Department of Special Collections, and retired George A. Smathers librarian Jane Ann Carey, the University of Florida comic book holdings continued to grow in size and scope. A centerpiece of the Suzy Covey comic book collection is one of the few surviving copies of The Reign of the Superman, a black and white fanzine produced in 1933 by Superman creators Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, 5 years before the first iconic Superman comic was published. A mixture of hand-drawn pictures and manual typewriter text, Superman in this earliest incarnation is a force for evil rather than a force for good and the American way. In 2017, our dedicated student assistant, Patrick DeGlaris, completed the year-long General Comic Book Processing Project, including a detailed online finding guide. The General Comic Book Collection contains 14,677 individual comic books from 1948 to the present. The comic book holdings include a variety of prominent comic book publishers, including DC Comics, Marvel Comics, and Dark Horse Comics, and some lesser-known and independent publishers, including First Comics, Valiant Comics, and Ripoff Press. The collection is organized alphabetically with some flexibility given to accommodate published works in a single volume, such as Superman or the Superman Annual, etc. The collection is contained in 95 boxes, holding approximately 140 comics each. Comic books depicting and representing popular cultural themes have been relocated to special subject holdings in the Suzy Covey comic book collection. These titles would include Disney-themed issues from the early sound films of the 1930s through the Mickey Mouse Club television era and beyond to theme park tie-ins spotlighting the United States space program, thinly disguised to actually promote the pleasures of Tomorrowland at Disneyland. We celebrate the silver screen with comic book offerings from the 1930s through the present day, when singing cowboys rode the range and the Jedi wielded force in a galaxy far, far away. The golden age of television is represented with adventures from the prairies, outer space, and secret missions of Spock, Paladin, Napoleon Solo, Britt Reed, alias the Green Hornet, and many, many others. Music world giants, such as the Grateful Dead, AC/DC, and Prince, are depicted in comic book form. Here we see Prince showcased in a Piranha Music promotional comic book for his latest album release in the 1990s. Public figures are celebrated and memorialized with single-issue special-purpose offerings, including comic book biographies of two-time presidential nominee and UN Ambassador ADLAI Stevenson and Roman Catholic missionary and saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta. You'll find comic book issues spotlighting the 35th President of the United States, John Kennedy, with a publication celebrating his wartime exploits commanding PT 109, and Martin Luther King and the Montgomery bus boycott in The Montgomery Story, first published by an organization called the Fellowship for Reconciliation in 1957. The Suzy Covey comic book collection is supported by an extensive research library of reference books and anthologies. The existing research volumes were enhanced by the acquisition of the John W. Lindell collection of comic books and cartoon histories and anthologies, 1,200 titles in all, donated in his memory by his wife Marjorie A. Lindell and his daughter Ann Lindell, a George A. Smathers librarian and colleague, in 2010. The collection is showcased, introduced, and shared through multiple class presentations for English, art, history, performing arts, and communication disciplines by various exhibits, community outreach, and digital presentations, such as this PowerPoint you're watching today. The Suzy Covey comic book collection holds items from every recognized age of comics: the Golden Age, 1938 to 1950, the Silver Age, 1950 to 70, the Bronze Age, 1970 to 85, and the Modern Age, 1985 to the present. All genres are represented, including daily humor strips and political satire, superhero, funny animal, military and war, Christmas and other holidays, sports, teen life, science fiction, graphic novels, and underground comics. The Department of Special and Area Studies continues to work closely with the Department of English to acquire, preserve, and make accessible primary source materials that can support the teaching and research needs of the program. The collection continues to grow with large and small donations from various donors, our superheroes, and budget purchases, and is supported annually by the Suzy Covey Comic Book Endowment Fund, initiated by her husband, William Bill Covey, in 2013 to support the acquisition, donation, and processing of comic books and other comic book genres at the University of Florida. The Suzy Covey Comic Book Collection is non-circulating, but is available for use by students, faculty, staff, and the general public weekdays throughout the year in the Grand Reading Room on the second floor of the Smathers Library. The Department of Special and Area Studies Collections is dedicated to improving the Suzy Covey comic book collection, and we welcome your inquiries and your visit.